At the end of the year, when scholarships were being renewed and people were being given scholarship, I didn't get one. She said I lacked the drive or discipline at the time to be taken seriously.
What was your initial reaction?
My initial reaction was a bratty one. And I was like, well, I don't need one anyway. I'm just going to go to college, and sort of went away in a huff. For any young girls watching this, I do not recommend this as a response. I didn't know how much I had benefited from sports until after I was not in them.
Oh boy, what an eye-opening interview we have for you today. Welcome back to The Athlete Effect. Bonnie Bernstein here. And today's guest, Donna Lamar, who you were just listening to, has a story that while it's different from our other power players, it's equally as impactful. Donna is a seasoned content and marketing executive. Some of her credits include head of global video and entertainment for Spotify, creative director for Twitter, Vice Media, iconic ad agency TBWA Chiat Day, head of production for Wieden+Kennedy, another agency giant. And the thing that might hit home most for you is that Donna was part of the team that rebranded Gatorade as G back in the day. So, resume sounds as baller as everybody else's, you might think. What's so different, Bonnie? Well, I'm glad you asked. What's different about Donna is that even though she learned through running track a ton about teamwork and resilience and not being afraid to do hard things, she learned just as much from quitting. That's right, quitting. I'm going to leave it at that. But her Texas Tech journey, a lot of meat on this bone, and a discussion I think will resonate with anyone who's thought about leaving their sport, or parents who might be grappling with this very discussion right now with one of your kids. Before we jump in though, thank you for being a part of the Athlete Effect community. We love hearing from you. Please, please, please subscribe, rate, review, share with other leaders in your life. We actually caught up with Donna for this conversation down in Lubbock, where she was returning to her alma mater for the first time since graduation to speak with current student athletes. So that's where we'll pick it up. Donna Lamar, welcome to the Athlete Effect Sisterhood.
Thank you for having me.
I was so excited to bring you back to your alma mater, knowing that you haven't been here since you graduated from Texas Tech. What did you anticipate versus what you've actually experienced?
Well, I will have to say I didn't really have an expectation. I didn't think about it in any way other than I will be at Tech and it'll be nice and I'm going to go meet these really cool people. What I wasn't expecting that I experienced was coming back and being like, wow, things have changed so much, but yet I still had the feeling of possibility and hope that I had when I came however many years ago. I won't say how many years it was, but
we can keep that between the two.
Yeah, yes. But I still felt like things are possible all over again. So
what's been different?
The athletic facilities are out of this world.
The look on your face when we walked into the indoor track.
I was just like, where?
Your eyes got as big as sausage and you were like, wow.
Yeah, it's like a real deal facility for athletes, which I think is kind of awesome.
Tech was your final competitive destination. What was your first? What or who got you interested in sports?
From a very young age, was already in sports. I was a very active girl. So I would have to say my father probably said, what do you want to do? Because he often said that. And my mother was a school teacher. And so I think I started running first grade, second grade, however young it is that you can start doing relays that are not necessarily associated with the school. Mm-hmm. I was always doing, and I played softball. So I'd have to say it's a family thing. I was not I have 3 brothers, but I was the oldest. So therefore I was the beneficiary of all of the let's play sports for my father.
Was there sort of this mentality as the oldest of 4 and you're the only girl, you have to play sports to keep up with your brothers?
Well, since I'm the oldest and the only girl, they had to keep up with me.
Oh, so who's the best athlete in the family?
That would be me.
Of course it would. You said that as you are. I did not mean to offend you in the least bit.
Yeah.
What has made you the best athlete among your siblings?
I really had a true sort of love for running and for sports. And it's not that my brothers didn't, but like one of my brothers has a true love for music. I had another brother that played football, but he liked it and he was really good at it. And he actually ran track too. He threw the discus, shot put and discus. And the brother that is closest to me in age, he became a runner after graduation, and he ran marathons because I used to run. And so I think I influenced them a little.
I always love hearing the story about what made you choose the race or the races that you run, because some are wired to sprint, some are wired for distance. What's your story?
I'm wired for sprinting. In PE class, way back when there was PE, I would run and I would win the race. And then it was like, oh, do you want to run track?
When we were preparing for this interview, I got such a kick out of, I wanted the list of the accolades, the all state, the all conference. And your response was, that's never really mattered for me, which quite frankly, I feel is kind of bizarre because everybody wants to tout their stats. Why has that stuff never been important to you?
I don't really do things unless I like them. I'm kind of a jack of all trades, and I can be good at whatever it is that I'm doing.
Yes, but you also said, well, I might have broke a record.
Oh, yeah. I think at some point I held the Amarillo High School record for the 200. I think it was broken at some point. I think I also held the record in high school for either a long or a triple jump. I'm not sure which one. I have some accolades. I just never, it's the thing that I do in the moment.
Sure.
And not the thing that I'm doing that I've done, I guess.
So what would you consider your defining high school moment in sports?
I was put on the 4x4 relay. I was already on the 4x1.
100, yep.
And then something happened to a player and they substituted me in to do the 400. And it was the first time I'd ever really run it for competition or anything like that.
You'd never run a 400 before?
Not in competition ever. And they said, we need you to do this. And I was like, okay. But I was terrified. And so I ran terrified. And I ran a sub 60 at that time for my very first one. And they're like, you're on the relay after. And I was like, that's not what I want. This was the hardest race I've ever done.
Did you continue running it or did you just beg off it? And you're like, nope, you had me once, I'm gone.
No, I continued running it. Yeah. Because you can't beg off after.
Was that a fear you feel you overcame?
Well, no, I was always afraid. But
it never got any better.
It was, yeah, I just knew, it was just the thing that I knew I had to do.
How much were college sports on your radar, the potential opportunity to run at the next level?
I didn't really think of it, and I had some people reach out and talk to me about scholarships and that sort of thing. It was more about academics for me. And that was just because my mother's a teacher and my father's really stressed the academic sort of thing. And I thought maybe I had to get a scholarship to go to school. So then I started paying attention. But my parents were like, well, you don't have to have a scholarship to go to school, but you do have to go to school. And I was like, oh, okay, so I don't really have to run. And I say that because I loved running, but the pressure of performing is kind of a lot. I could only actually deal with the pressure of performance because I liked running. If I hadn't liked it, I wouldn't have done it at all. And it was surprising to me when I decided that I was going to pursue sort of a more academically based, and I was not going to really run, that when I show up at Texas Tech, the very first thing I do is miss running.
Why did you miss it?
Well, I missed the community of it. I missed having a team. I missed being on a team of women, young women, who were pursuing. It felt like a warrior a little bit, and I missed that feeling. I was just like, what was I thinking? I just missed it.
Jarvis Scott, one of the legendary coaches in track, and she won the 400 and the 68 Olympics, and she offered you a scholarship?
Well, they talked to me about a scholarship, which I was not interested in. And then I came to Tech and said, oh, I missed I miss running. So I go talk to Coach Scott and I was like, I'd like that scholarship now. And she was like, and you need to walk on because you missed your opportunity.
And this was your sophomore year?
This is my freshman year.
Okay, so this was at the very beginning. Like as soon as you got on campus, you realized, I might have made a mistake.
Might have made a mistake, yeah. And she was like, yeah, you can walk on. And I was like, okay, I will, because that's fair, right?
Sure.
And I walked on. I performed pretty well. I made some really good friends. It was really, really fun. And there was an indoor track meet that I missed because of my grandfather's birthday. But when I came back, all was well, I thought. And at the end of the year, when scholarships were being renewed and people were being given scholarship, I didn't get one. And it was because she said it was because I went to the birthday party. And it wasn't because I went to the birthday party, but it was because I lacked the drive or discipline at the time to be taken seriously.
What was your initial reaction?
My initial reaction was a bratty one. And I was like, well, I don't need one anyway. And I didn't quite say those words, or I might have said those words actually. But I was like, I don't need one anyway. So I'm just going to continue going to school. I'm just going to go to college, and sort of went away in a huff. I do not, just for any young girls watching this, I do not recommend this as a response.
Do not try this at home.
Do not do this. But it was actually a defining moment for me and my character and everything.
How so?
Like in my life. Because, at that time I said those things because I was speaking from a place of pride, not even pride, ego. Ego is different than pride. And also really young. I didn't know. And so it turns out that I walked away from something that was really important to me and had benefited me greatly, which I didn't know how much I had benefited from sports until after I was not in them.
Yeah. If you were going to take that experience and define it as a skill set or a characteristic that you carried into the workforce, what would that word be?
One word would be adaptability, which is pivot. But another thing I would say it taught me, which I'm thinking of right now, is prudence, the ability to actually self-evaluate and understand really to not react emotionally in an instance that is proved to be foundational for me.
It's so interesting to have this conversation with you, Donna, because typically when we discuss life skills learned through sports that athletes harness to thrive in their career, we hear a lot about teamwork and resilience and confidence and time management. Your journey has shaped your position differently. And so you have the prudence and the adaptability. But when you think of the traditional skill sets, how have some of them come into play in your career?
All of them come into play. And also I think it made me more accessible, actually.
Really?
To other workmates, i.e. teammates, and also made me more empathetic from a managerial point of view, like to understand the possible situations that other people could be having based on whatever's happening with them personally.
Is there an example of that?
I view it as important to actually try and be not friendly with the people that you work with, but friends to the people that you work with. So
What's
you don't
the difference?
Friendly is like having an associate, or an acquaintance. We have commonalities in sort of our workplace and our workday, which is great. And it works for a lot of people. But for me, in order to actually work with a thriving team, I need to feel like they are my team or my family or my friends. And in order for that to happen, I have to be truly invested in not only their career path, but how their personal life impacts their career path, and what can I do to help, if I can, in a purely personal way, because the personal always impacts the professional, even when we try to keep it separate. I don't think there is a separation.
That's something I feel comes into play in sports, in coaching.
Yes.
where a coach wants to help you be the best person you can be on the field of play. But a lot of times there are things that are going on off the field of play that impact your ability to perform at your peak.
100%.
Yeah. I also think that empathy, in the same sort of way, comes into play in the career world. How many bosses have you had who have taken this sort of interest in you as a person and your personal life?
A man named Jimmy Smith. He was my mentor, and he was also my friend. He was probably one of the first people that I met who's thinking about how to grow a team was very different to what was happening at the time.
What was happening at the time?
At the time, in marketing and advertising, everything was siloed. Everyone had a specific position, and this is what you do this because this is how you identify, this is what you do, this is what your capability is, this is how things are structured. And he was one of the first people to sort of break the mold.
I am so glad you said the word silo. I find this to be one of the most challenging things, A, in corporate America, but B, in working with brands who work with 4 to 8 different agencies.
Yes.
Let's go down the silo rabbit hole.
Okay.
Is there a benefit to silos?
I think probably 10 to 15 years ago, I think there might have been a benefit to silo. It wasn't that people and companies were siloed. The benefit was that I think there was more emphasis on craft. So I think it was originally something that was a positive. It's like go be or do.
Go be great at whatever
it is you do.
Yep.
Like just be amazing at that, and we'll build things. We'll build structures around what you're great at, so that all these great pieces come together and they make a great whole.
And the downside of silos is what?
You, as an individual, probably most people can do more than one thing. Most people can be really great at a lot of things, but when you are siloed, you're not given the opportunity or even considered for the other things that you could do just as well. So it sort of cuts off, in my opinion, opportunities to growth.
How can you draw upon sports as an analogy?
All of our sort of elite athletes are celebrated because they're elite, but they didn't start off elite. You become the thing.
But you really can't become the thing for the most part without a team around you.
I don't think there's one thing that you can do in life and become the best at it without a team. And a team is not like your team like just your team members. It's your coach, it's your family, it's everybody that is surrounding you. Let's look at Michael Jordan. I don't know, thousands of people helped make him great. I mean, he had the raw ability and talent, and he had the drive, and he did all of the work. But to enable all of that work was a whole team of people.
Your career has been incredible, and you've worked for some of the biggest advertising agencies like Wieden+Kennedy, and you've worked for Twitter, and you've worked for Spotify. Share the story about how you got your job at Wieden+Kennedy. And if you're watching this or listening to this and you don't know what Wieden+Kennedy is, it is truly one of the most highly recognized global advertising agencies, maybe because of the Just Do It campaign with Nike that everybody remembers. But how did your sports experience help you land that job so early in your career?
I was working in advertising. I saw this commercial. It was If You Let Me Play. I saw it and I was like, I am down. You know, it was all about women in sports and young girls playing sports. And I was like, I want to work for the company that did that.
What about that campaign created that impression for you?
Well, I was a woman or a young woman in sports, and I understood how critical sports were to my own development. And so when I saw this, I was like, that's me and a lot of other women. And here's a commercial that is speaking to me about something that's important.
And this was back in the 90s, so there wasn't the movement that we have now.
No. And then one day while I was living in Maryland, Wieden+Kennedy called. That's the short version of it. But I didn't believe that they had called.
They just called out of the blue?
They called out of the blue. And it was because a guy that I'd worked with, Jimmy Smith, on another project, maybe, I don't even know, like a year or so ago or whatever, when he was asked, do you know anyone that could help us out and work on, whatever the project was? And he was like, yeah, this woman, Donna Lamar. And he gave them my phone number, and that's how that happened.
Isn't it amazing?
It's crazy. First, they said, we need somebody to go to Australia. Do you want to go? And I was like, yes. So I went to Australia, and I went for 6 months. And then they said, hey, we need somebody to go to Amsterdam for 6 weeks, literally. And I was like, I'll go if I can take my dog. And 6.5 years later, I moved to London.
What was the most memorable thing during your time in Amsterdam that you worked on?
I'd say the secret tournament. The secret tournament was this tournament that was a football tournament, so soccer tournament that was held on a tanker, like a big ship in the middle of the ocean. At least that's how it was portrayed. And we brought all of the world's largest football players, and Eric Cantona at the time too, together and put them in a situation where they had a secret tournament. And it was just amazing. So much Nike work.
In having the opportunity to speak with some of the student athletes at Texas Tech, one of the more memorable pieces of advice you shared was live overseas for at least 1 year at some point in your lifetime. And when I reflect on some of the life skills learned from sports that were important to you, adaptability was one of them that came up. How did that come into play as you were picking your entire life up and moving to a different country?
I think anybody would have some apprehension, just a little bit, but I had more like excitement than I had anything else, because it never occurred to me that I couldn't do it, because sports gave me the ability to understand that as long as I put in the work, I will have results. So it never, yes, apprehension, I'm going to move again, or I'm going to move to a second different country and all of that. It's like, ooh, okay. But it never, ever occurred to me that I couldn't.
There's so many young people who are interested in going into advertising or marketing. That's their major in college. These are such vast industries. And I hear a lot of times from young people, like, we know we want to do this, but we're not really sure what.
Yes.
You have worked on the brand side. You have worked on the agency side. What would you say to a group of young folks who are getting ready to graduate that would help them identify where that sweet spot could be for them?
It was very beneficial to me to start in an advertising agency. And the reason I say that is it's highly competitive in advertising agencies. It's also really specialized, and it's where you learn rigor, because you have a bunch of people who are probably as talented as you are, and they have their own point of view. And the way things are set up, you're pitching your ideas all of the time against a lot of other people, in much the same way you compete in athletics, right? So if you have an opportunity, work on the agency side first, because you develop the skills that you're going to need to work brand side. Because brand side, it's not that you're not competing really against other people, except maybe other teams that are working on the same brand. But in an agency, you are competing against a bunch of people working across different brands that have different experiences.
Because the agency side is so cutthroat and competitive, is there a story you can share about how your rigor gave you a leg up that presented an opportunity for you?
Because I was an agency producer first before I became a creative, I think just being a producer and understanding production was beneficial and gave me a leg up. But also, when I first started out as a creative instead of a producer, the creatives were not exactly welcoming, actually. They were pretty much like, who are you? Why do you think you can do this job? I had people say, we've done this longer than you. You don't have a portfolio, all of this stuff. It was really kind of like, I was like, okay.
The creatives come up with the ideas, the producers bring the ideas to life.
And then I proceeded to make sure that every time I pitched something, it was like the best thing I could do, and it was based in like my belief and my knowledge. And for like a good part of the year, just about everything I pitched was sold.
What's a pitch that put you on the map that made all the doubting creatives say, well, okay, we're going to have to keep our mouths shut now?
The one that I loved doing the most was actually a one where we sent basically athletes back in time. And it was we sent them back in time. We gave them Gatorade. Of course, they crushed it.
Who are the athletes?
Usain Bolt, Serena Williams, Peyton Manning.
Also a bunch of slaps, really.
We sent them all back in time. We shot in New Zealand. It was like a big, huge deal. And it was going to go air on the Super Bowl. I was very excited. And then it was pulled.
Why?
It was believed that by sending people or athletes back in time, that we were creating sort of a racial dynamic that the brand itself didn't want to have. And it's not at all what we were trying to do. But if one person thinks this, it becomes a whole conversation. And it resulted in us having to pull it from the Super Bowl. And we did subsequently air those spots. But they were later and they weren't on the Super Bowl, but it was,
After putting in all the work.
Yeah.
And having the producers produce.
Yeah.
And having it ready to go for the Super Bowl.
Yes.
I can't even imagine how that made you feel.
Well, I wasn't jazzed.
It didn't make me happy.
But I think, again, maybe we can go back to my adaptability. And now on the brand side, because then I was on the agency side, but now having been on the brand side for quite a few years, while I may not necessarily agree, I do understand what some of the considerations are for some of the decisions that are being made.
So you were part of a team that did the whole rebrand of Gatorade.
So when I went to work at Chiat on Gatorade, the brief, as it were, was to rebrand Gatorade because Gatorade was seen as your grandfather's sport drink. And so the team, Jimmy Smith, this guy named Jayanta, myself, there was a little group of us. We worked on the rebranding of it, and it was rebranded to G, just the letter G with what it is now.
Which we still see today.
Yeah,
when
it's exactly
you go to get
what
it at
it
the
is.
store. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why has the rebranding worked?
We defined what it meant to be G. So the tagline was, that's G. And so culturally at the time, if you were a G, you were a GOAT, you were doing great things. And so the tagline is, that's G. So we would show examples of athletes performing at the top of their game or putting them in situations. And then we would end it with, that's G, i.e. that's Gatorade. But not only is it Gatorade, because it was not about being Gatorade, it was about being the best at whatever it is that you're doing.
When you walk into a store, though, and you see a Gatorade bottle, do you ever be like, I did that?
Not now.
Come on, you have to.
I mean, when I was working on Gatorade and working on all these really cool things, it was really great to see out in the world stuff that I'd done. But it was equally great when I was working at Twitter, because we rebranded Twitter as well.
You spent 2 or 3 years there.
Yeah, I was at Twitter twice.
As we've seen social media evolve, and it is such a part of young people's lives, what did you learn on the inside at Twitter that would be helpful for young people to know on the outside about how to best use social media for their benefit, whatever that is.
Social media is a tool, and it is very effective, and it is part of how we live now, because now everybody's a brand. Like that verbiage when I started, people were not brands unless they were like celebrities or whatever. Now everybody brands themselves.
It took a while for me to get comfortable with the term personal brand. It literally did not exist.
No, it didn't.
And so now it's like a part of everybody's daily vernacular.
It is. And there are good things, I think, about that. And then I think there are things that could be improved, because I feel like over time what has happened is people have gotten swept up in trying to curate their personal brand, but they are doing this curation based in validation or feedback from people that they don't know at all, and I think that sometimes too much importance is given to a stranger's opinion of your haircut. I think, and I think that is not necessarily the best place to be from a personal growth standpoint, particularly if you're really young. Because I don't know that, when you're in college and in high school and now junior high, you're developing the tools that you need to become who you're going to become.
Yeah.
If you start curating a self that is dependent upon the influence of someone else without having done the work of figuring out who you are, I think that it could be detrimental later. A lot of young people starting out in social media don't understand. They're so sort of attached to what the outcome is without understanding that the content itself, the content is everything. And most content that catches is because you're doing something silly with your friends and you do it and you post it and it goes viral.
Yep.
But you don't know why it goes viral. It just resonates.
And it always happens when you least expect it.
Yes. So the emphasis should literally be do yourself, do you well.
There have been so many game-changing points in your career, whether it was Nike or the rebranding of Gatorade, working on Twitter in the early days. At Spotify, you had the chance to take what's traditionally been known as a music and audio platform and bring it into the video age. What was that like?
Video is the language that our audience speaks. And then at Spotify, you combine a knowledge of how to reach your audience, which is video, with what Spotify excelled at, which is like music and music streaming and all things audio. Mm-hmm. And you combine those two things, and that's kind of an unbeatable combination if you get it right. Yeah. And it's an exciting place to be. But I would say that any company of Spotify or at the size of Spotify that is engaging in content or entertainment should also be in video.
In video. I know how proud you are of the Billions Club.
Yes, that was cool.
And the Billions Club was a curated playlist and also live concerts that celebrated songs that had at least 1 billion streams. And some of the live shows or some of the concerts included Ed Sheeran and Miley Cyrus and The Weeknd,
yeah.
Bad Bunny. How much of your creativity went into bringing that to life?
So the Billions Club already existed. And then one of those artists came to us and wanted to do something with Spotify. And the result of all of the conversations was a Billions Club Live. It's a live experience. It's also a concert, it's a performance for top fans. And the part of it that was important to me was that it feel different, like not a documentary, because it wasn't a documentary.
How'd you make it feel different?
It was the way that it was structured. So the Billions Club consists of several elements. We have the performance and we have the artist talking about the fans. Like this whole thing was made for the fans. So we have the artist talking about how fans influenced the work. We also have like visually constructed in such a way so that we have the vignettes, and vignettes are like little special clips of the narrative storytelling part of it. And then we have the performance itself.
Yeah.
And so it all comes together in a nice, hopeful experience for the audience who was there in real life, and then for those who are viewing it on the platform, so that they also feel like they get the same type of experience. The Billions Club Live was for and is for the fans.
You have worked in corporate America on the agency side, on the brand side, but you've also had your own production company,
Yes, I have.
Stalking Muses. As you start thinking about your next chapter, do you see it being in a very big space again, or do you maybe want to go small?
I think if I answer that question right now today, I want to see if I can go big for Donna.
What does that look like to you?
So I've worked for all of these companies and it's been great. I've had great experiences and it has been good work, and it's been really big, visible work.
And fulfilling work
And
too.
fulfilling, like it's all good. I have nothing negative to say about anything that I've done. But what I feel like I haven't done is go 100% in for me and the work that I do, and creatively express, not for a brand, but for myself, what it is that I want to say and what I want to do. And I haven't done that. And so whether that expression is a small film or a commercial or whatever it is, a book, I don't know. I haven't yet put all of my creativity behind what it is that I want to say.
As a woman of color who has worked at the highest levels in marketing and advertising, does that come into play as you think about your next chapter?
It has definitely come into play. I think sometimes, a lot of times, it's been a positive thing, just because I'm bringing a point of view that is not normally seen in sort of the venues that I am working in and at the level that I'm working. And sometimes it's been not as positive, an experience for me, but it's always been an experience that has helped me grow. So for me, I want to be someone who's just doing really good work because the work is good. But I am a woman of color, and I want, as a woman of color, to represent not just women of color, but women everywhere. But I also want little girls to look at me and say, she looks like me, so therefore I can do it too.
In one of your LinkedIn posts, you quoted Octavia Butler, the sci-fi
Love
author.
her. Yeah, love.
The quote was, "All that you touch, you change. And all that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change." When you reflect back on your time as an athlete, what about sports has changed you?
I don't think I would have the confidence that I have in myself had it not been for sports, not in the way that I have it now. And I'm not saying that I'm overly confident or super confident now, because I think that's an area that I can actually grow in, to be honest. What I learned about persistence has also been really, really helpful, because, and that was, again, something that was foundational to sports, right? As you persist in sports, you get better. In the corporate world, persistence can make a project happen. I don't think many people understand how hard it is to get to a good idea. It's very, very difficult to get to an idea that is a good one, that resonates, that is authentic to whatever it is that you're trying to say. It's hard to do. It's really hard. And also, I learned that I can do hard things, and it's okay for it to be hard. I think kids should understand that it's okay for things to be hard. In fact, you need them to be hard to know that you can get through them. Let it be hard. Life is actually amazing and wonderful and full and thrilling, but it's also hard sometimes. And you can't have all of that stuff. You can't have amazing without hard.
It's not a straight line like that
No.
100 you used to run.
No, which was also hard.
Donna Lamar, thank you so much for your candor and your wisdom and your time, and for being a part of the Athlete Effect Sisterhood.
Well, I am very honored that you have allowed me to be here, so thank you.
See, I told you this would be a different conversation, but I do love how Donna's trials and tribulations as an athlete have influenced her prioritizing being accessible as a boss, being empathetic when it comes to understanding what's going on in the lives of her teammates, viewing them as true friends versus just acquaintances. It was also a blast, I'm not gonna lie, to hop on the Wayback Machine and talk about some of the ad campaigns I remember growing up with, like Just Do It, If You Let Me Play from Nike. If you're interested in those, we've included YouTube links for you in the show notes. Check them out, as well as social handles for Donna, yours truly, and The Athlete Effect. Before you go, if you could please take a sec, subscribe to our podcast, download, share, review. Thank you so much for taking the time to support us and our community. Shouting out our pod squad, Allison Johnson, Carlos Delgado, Jess Levy, and Kimberly Neal. The Athlete Effect is a Walk Swiftly Productions podcast, copyright 2026, all rights reserved. Once an athlete, always an athlete. You know the line. We'll see you again soon.